Hi, Jesse here with eTrailer. Today we'll be taking a look at and I'll show you how to install the Firestone Ride-Rite air helper springs on our 2014 Chevrolet Silverado 2500. Adding air helper springs like this is really going to improve the ride quality of your truck, especially when you're towing or hauling heavy loads. If you've ever towed or hauled with your truck with just the factory suspension, you probably notice it sagging in the rear end quite a bit, and that's really going to affect the ride quality. And also, believe it or not, it will affect the braking on the truck. Because when that truck's sagging, you're taking weight off of the front wheels, which is where a lot of the braking from modern vehicles come from. They really rely on the front brakes a lot, so when you're taking the weight off, those tires won't be able to grip quite as well. Also, all of your steering components are up on the front end, so it's going to affect the handling of the truck. So adding a air helper spring system like this is really going to improve your ride quality and keep you safe out there on the road. These springs will replace your factory bump stop, which just comes on every truck from the factory. It's not really there to improve the ride quality very much. It's just there to eliminate any metal on metal contact if you're maybe hitting a large bump or taking a tight turn with weight in the back of the truck. We do offer a few options to replace this that will actually, they'll be a little larger and will improve your ride quality and eliminate some sag. However, we'll almost always recommend air helper springs because of the fact that they are adjustable. So as you can see here, we have a couple of valves mounted here. So depending on how heavy the load is, or maybe you don't have anything in the bed of the truck at all, you have that ability to adjust. Firestone does recommend that you always have at least 5 psi in them just to eliminate any chances of causing damage to the bags. Another thing we like to recommend around the shop is adding an air compressor. It's just going to eliminate the need to find some place to stop, maybe a gas station to fill up, especially if you're someone who's towing a lot of different trailers or maybe hauling different loads a lot. It just makes the adjustments a lot easier to get done. Overall, if you're looking to eliminate that sag when you're hauling loads and also are looking for the ability to have some adjustability, you really can't go wrong with the Firestone set. As far as the install goes, it's actually a pretty simple process. You just got to pull those bump stops out and mount a couple brackets, then run your line. So if it's not something you're looking to do yourself, maybe you don't have the time, the space, or the tools to do so, feel free to check out our dealer locator. However, if you are looking to get this set up yourself, then follow along and I'll show you how we did ours. To begin our install, we'll start under the truck, and we need to remove our bump stop here. So it helps to just get a pry bar and kind of dig in there and try to work it out. And we'll set that aside. Now we're ready to get our upper brackets set up. So we'll take, this is our upper bracket here, and then these are our clamp mounts. So we'll start off, then facing each other, we'll take our large hex bolt screws, or bolts, slide them up through the bottom, and then just loosely thread on the nut. We'll do that for all 4 of the holes. Just leaving them loose because we'll need to slide that back and forth while we're installing it. Now we take our 2 longer bolts here and slide them through the hole on our clamp. Once again, we're just leaving these ones will just barely thread on, maybe 1 or 2 threads, just enough so it won't fall off while we're holding it up there. So over here on the driver's side, it looks like our bracket and our parking brake cable are kind of in our way to get our bracket mounted up here where the bump stop was. So what I'm gonna do is I just took this 13mm bolt out that was holding our bracket in. I'm gonna take this down and I'll probably put a pretty big bend in this bracket using some pliers and a vise. That way our parking brake cable will be mounted up here out of our way. So I actually wasn't able to get that bracket bent enough to where it would work. So what I did was I came to this bracket that's on the parking brake cable, used some channel locks, bent that up, and then I have it zip tied up to right here. There's a tab where your brake hoses go through. I think that'll be just fine. It's just a parking brake cable, so you don't have to worry about damaging anything really. So now we can take our upper bracket and get it slipped on over our bump stop here. Slides out with this side on the inside, and once you get it all the way up flush against the bump stop, just kind of finger tight these two bolts and nuts just enough so that it stays up there. Tighten the front side. And now it's going to stay there. Now we'll take a 7/16 and a 3/8 wrench and tighten those two bolts and nuts down. We're just going to slowly get one side snug and then move to the other one, because you want to tighten these evenly as possible. So just keep alternating back and forth. We can work on tightening down the bottom bolts. Just remember to alternate with those also, and then we can go through and torque everything down. We'll take our bag and our bottom bracket. On the bottom of your airbag here, there will be a threaded hole. We'll take our bracket like this, take your short bolts, and just get that threaded on loosely for now. Now we can dry fit everything. The bracket is going to go like this with this part on the outside. So just squeeze your bag down and hold it. And we're wanting to get this pin here. This is our alignment pin. We want to line it up with the center hole there. So just double check, make sure once you get everything that the center hole is lining up correctly. Once that's all in place and we got it right, we'll take a marker and mark the spot. Now with everything in place, we're going to take a marker, make a mark on both the bag and the bracket in a straight line. You can really mark it anywhere, just as long as when you take this back off, you'll be able to know that you have it all lined up. With the bag off the car again, we'll just make sure our lines are still lined up. Take a 7/32 hex socket and tighten it down. We can put our bag back in place now, and we'll take our spring clamp hooks here. These are going to install. You'll kind of have to work around the brake line here, but you're going to hook up underneath this collar and slide your carriage bolt down to the bottom. And for now, we'll just loosely get our nut threaded on there. And then we have another clamp for the front side. On our front clamp here, you can see we're hitting this shock bracket and not quite able to get the right angle for it. So what I'm going to do is bring this to a bench vise and just kind of squeeze this just a bit. And once I'm able to get the bolt lined up, I'll just tighten the nut and then it should all straighten out. So you can see I'd just kind of close that gap a little bit. That'll help us get the right angle we need. So I'll just get this installed the same way we did the back one. Now we'll tighten those down with a 9/16" wrench, and we're going to alternate back and forth just like we did on all the other hardware. Now we'll take our lock washer. It's going to slide over the top here, and this large nut. Get that spun on. Get that nut spun on, and then we'll tighten it down with a 1 1/8" wrench. We'll install our airline fitting. This will be a 9/16. Get that threaded on. With these, you don't want to go too tight on them to where you're bending it or possibly breaking it. Just get it nice and snug. And later, once we have everything hooked up, we'll check for leaks, and if there's a leak, we can tighten it down a little more. On the passenger side, it's essentially the same process, just a few different things that we had to do. For example, this parking brake bracket here. I just had to take a bolt out of it and then bend this tab straight so it would sit flush. And once that bolt's out, this clamp will hold it into place. And then I did add some loom here just to protect our parking brake cable in case it rubs around, but really I don't think it should be an issue. Then on the back side, we have exhaust here. So included in your kit is this heat shield for that. All you do is slide it on top of your airbag, in between the airbag and your top bracket, and then it just kind of gets sandwiched in between the two. With both of our bags installed, we can move on to finding a good mounting point for our bracket that's going to hold our inflation valves. This is included in the kit. You just wrap some zip ties around it and tighten it down. But then we'll take our fitting here, just slide it through the hole. Well, first put a washer on the back side. Slide it through the hole. Then put another washer on it and the nut. And get that tightened down with a 12 millimeter wrench. Doesn't have to be super tight, just enough so where it doesn't move. For our airline tubing, it will come just as one piece, so what we did is just stretched it out and cut it in the middle. And when you're cutting these, just make sure you're using something sharp that you can get a nice straight cut with. But now that we have our bracket installed, we can kind of plan ahead where our route is going to go, or as far as our airline tubing goes. We just want to stay away from anything hot or sharp. And the way these install is we'll just go to the fitting on the airbag. These install simply by pushing down. You will kind of feel it give you a click whenever it's fully installed, and then tug on it and make sure it's not going to come out. So you can see the route I took here. I'm just following this wiring harness, and I will zip tie it down once I get all the slack pulled out of it. Once we get to the end here, you do have a couple options here. You could cut off any slack and just have a nice clean line ran back, but what I'll do is just coil up all of our extra and zip tie it up out of our way. That way, in case our neighbor ever changes their mind on the location of these airline fittings, they can always change it. But as far as installing it here, it's the same as back of the bag. Just push in and you'll kind of feel it click past the point and tug it and make sure it's not going to come out. Take some soapy water and spray down all of your fittings before we fill them up with air. And what we're going to do is fill them up to about 70 psi, and then we'll check back at all of our fittings for any bubbles that will tell us there's a leak. So just get those all sprayed down. And we'll fill both of them up with about 70 psi. So like I said, just take your time doing your leak test, fill it up, and let the soapy water sit, and just make sure there's no more bubbles showing. As long as we have no leaks, we can lower our PSI to whatever we want to set it at and take our truck out for a ride and see how it drives. Otherwise, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Firestone Ride-Rite air helper springs on our 2014 Chevrolet Silverado 2500.